Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Insights for Success, How Technology is Transforming Community College Student Engagement. I'm thrilled to welcome you to today's session. Just a couple of housekeeping notes as we get started. This meeting is being recorded, and we will share a copy of the recording with you following the webinar. Also, feel free to use the Q&A feature in the platform to ask questions of our panelists. And finally, the chat is also available. So if you'd like, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat or use that to share ideas and experiences with the rest of the participants today. My name is Dr. Mirko Wiedenhorn, and I am honored to serve as the moderator of today's session. I'm the Senior Director of Client Engagement here at Ready, and we're thrilled to welcome you to the webinar today, where we'll be talking with leaders from community colleges across the United States. And we'll explore a variety of topics, including student engagement, building stronger communities, supporting student success, and others. And we know that that focus on student success has additional benefits as it relates to retention and certainly trying to ensure completion and foster completion. Before we get started, I do want to tell you briefly about who we are at Ready, in case you're not as familiar with us. So at Ready, we are really focused on providing the platform that students use every day to be successful. Now, that might be through targeting your communications to specific subsets of students, making sure that they're getting the information that they need, also using a multi-channel approach to do that. Ways to grow engagement, whether that's highlighting opportunities for them to be involved on campus, connect with other students, and all of that through or encouraged by gamification, including badging. We focus on increasing efficiency, both for your student leaders, but also for you as administrators, trying to make the platform as easy to use as possible through workflows and automations so that you have more time to do what you all do best, which is talking and connecting with students. And then finally, a focus on really proactively supporting students. And that's a lot of what we'll talk about today, but looking at the data in the platform and identifying which students are engaging and which may not be as engaged. And therefore, there may be more of a risk of them completing. So that's just a quick element about who we are at Ready. We are proud to partner with over 700 institutions across 28 countries, and also working with 70% of the top 30 US universities using our student experience platforms. With that, let me introduce our panel today. And again, I'm excited to hear from each of our panelists and would also invite you to participate as well by submitting questions through the platform. First, we have Dr. Frank Sirioni, who's the Dean of Student Development at Germanna Community College. He's joined by Dr. AJ Trump, Vice President of Student Affairs at Bergen Community College. And last but certainly not least, Wendy Jeske, the Student Engagement Director at Flathead Valley Community College. With that, let me turn it right over to our panel. Thanks so much for joining us today, and let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's start off with, I'll just ask you to briefly introduce yourself, your role, and then talk a little bit at a high level of your institution's approach to fostering student success. And Frank, why don't I have you kick us off?
Thank you, Mirko, and hello, everyone. It's so great to be here with fellow community college student affairs professionals. My name is Dr. Frank Sirioni. I serve as the Dean of Student Development at Germanna Community College, which is in Fredericksburg, Virginia. We serve about 13,000 students across 7 counties in 1 city. We have 5 sites and students online everywhere. And so we really just take the approach that we give individualized, tailored, one-on-one personal support to all of our students. We really try to look at the whole student, where they are and where they want to go and where they want to be, and we try to meet them there. For our student services, we really believe in the wraparound student support model. We really think about being both invasive and proactive. And so something that I'm really proud of, one of our signature programs of how we do that is we think about students outside of the classroom. We have a really robust offering for personal support, any barriers that community college students may face outside the classroom, and we call that Germanna Cares because we care about our students, we love our students. And so we do things that I'm sure many of you do as well. We have opportunities for emergency funding. We provide healthy, nutritious food through our food pantry program. We have housing support, technology, transportation. We also use a program called Single Stop, which connects students to our community to make sure they're getting local and state aid and resources. And we've recently onboarded something called Timely Care for 24/7 tele mental health, which has been super effective for us with all the students we serve. So really thinking about the whole student and making sure that if they're healthy and happy outside the classroom, they're going to be successful inside.
Great, thanks so much for that, Frank. Wendy, let me turn it over to you. If you don't mind talking a little bit about the size of your office as well, just because I think there's a little difference between Flathead Valley and Germanna Community College. But first, introduction, and then a little bit about sort of how you support student success.
All right, thank you. And thank you for being here. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Wendy Jeske, and I am the Student Engagement Director here at Flathead Valley Community College. We're a small college in Northwest Montana. We have 2,500 students, and we do have two campuses, a very small one up in Libby, Montana, that we serve. So as far as our institution's approach, it's very similar probably to a lot of the schools here. We pride ourselves in a very strong academic advising department where we focus on the student one-on-one. We have several academic advisors that can focus on those students and see what their needs are. And then we also have a very diverse student support services department here on campus. Very similar. We have a food pantry. We have have a wellness program. We have peer educators that, can help support their students. We have a food pantry, basic needs programs, a lot of those different type of things that we can support our students on. But however, I come in the area of student engagement. So that's where we have a lot of the different events and community service projects. We really try to connect our students on campus, but also in our campus, off campus. So working with community partners, getting our students engaged with the services in our valley, as well as on and off campus. So some of the things that we really focus on this year as far as student engagement goes is that we had our accreditation visit back in 2020, so we had to refocus a little bit, and we have a really strong focus on data-informed decisions and making sure that we're looking at the data and that how we can best support our students. So along with that is also increasing just data literacy on our campus, and then also just improving communications through that data. So that's been a strong focus for us in improving student success and building that sense of belonging here on campus.
Wonderful. Thanks, Wendy. And you touched on some of the work that you're doing in student engagement. It's so important to get students to connect with other students and also the community, right? It creates the more of that sense of belonging, the sense of even community. So that's wonderful. And we'll dig more into those topics in a little bit. AJ, over to you. Again, if you can just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about how you foster student success at Bergen.
Sure, Mirko. Hello, everybody. My name is AJ Trump, not related. I'm the Vice President of Student Affairs at Bergen Community College. Bergen Community College is the largest community college in the state of New Jersey. In the spring, we're around 13,000 students, similar in size to Germanna, sorry. And, how we foster student success at Bergen comes down to there's a lot of ways. There's a lot of small ways and there's a lot of big ways. And we believe in holistic supports. We believe that students need to bloom before they can Maslow. So we have a food pantry and a clothing closet. I know that's a cool little one-liner. Feel free to steal it and use it, people. But we really do believe students need to, have those basic needs met in order for them to be successful in college. We have a daycare on campus, and we have many, many, many programs to support students' mental health and well-being, personal counseling 24/7. We also, have a very robust, we're a commuter school, but we have a very robust population that stays on campus all day. So we have this really great desire. They take buses and they stay here all day, the students, to get involved and engage. And so we try to find ways to support them where they're engaging in the small groups, but we also look to have a larger belonging and engagement strategy to support student success as an institution through, our advising center and some of our larger initiatives. So, it is a really complex, really, way to support and approach this fostering student success. But you know, I think you have to do it in both small and big ways. And as the Vice President of Student Affairs, I've always said it's important, and I always say this to my staff, you know, it's important that the rigor for being a student is in the classroom, not in becoming a student, getting the support you need, staying a student, finding resources. And I try to bring that and talk about that at every divisional meeting and across the campus. You know, I think we have to continue to break down, you know, those barriers that get in the way to students getting the things that they need to engage and be successful. So nice to meet everybody.
Thanks, AJ. And I think some really important and poignant points that you made there. Right, it is about the student's success, and so much can get in the way of that success that has nothing to do with their academic experience. So anything that can be done to eliminate or minimize some of those is going to be beneficial. AJ, let me stick with you for a second, and let's talk a little bit about a specific program or initiative that has been successful in increasing engagement or connection at Bergen.
Sure. So our new student orientation program, we kind of have redesigned it since the pandemic. In coming on board with Ready, we required, not required, but we had students during orientation download the Ready app and participate in scavenger hunts on orientation day and check in and you know, at different locations around campus and learn about services. And then at the end of that, they were able to, you know, get a giveaway, you know, a nice prize or something. So that that is something that has kind of broken down barriers to get students to the places, to find the places where the support is. And then we take that further. So when we have our welcome week and we have our club days, all the clubs are able, they have QR codes and they all, you know, students can walk around and find clubs that they're interested in and scan and join a club and, you know, be pushed and given information about when that club's meetings are and start to engage with the campus community in a way that, you know, they never have. They never have before. So I would say that that has been a really, really big success for us. I would also say during the pandemic, we tried to put orientation online, and I think we only had like 1 or 2 students actually do it because it's not mandatory. But this past semester, we had 1,300 new students go through this process, you know, and become, you know, we have over 6,000 plus, you know, students that are actively engaged and using and participating in these club days and these programs. So, which is more than half of our student body. So we're really pleased about that, and we just continue to look to ways to improve that.
That's awesome. Great examples. AJ, a follow-up question for you just quickly on the scavenger hunt. Was there an incentive if they completed the scavenger hunt? Did they get a badge in the platform? What do you use to encourage that participation?
Right. So I think we typically buy, and I'm not sure exactly what the giveaways were, but I always tell them to buy like a nice fancy little thing. So you know, like a fancy, not Stanley Cup, but like a, you know, like, because that's too expensive for 1,300 people, but you know, like a knockoff of that or something with the Bergen logo or so we always try to give something that they can, you know, proudly display college swag and feel like they're a part of the community at the end. And they all are like, oh, I want to get that. How do you get that? So
Love it. Incentives always work. T-shirts, giveaways, still works in our life as well. Frank, what about you? If you had to think of one program, which one jumps out to you?
Yeah, I thought it would be kind of like a recency bias, but I wanted to talk about our civic engagement and voter empowerment program. We started through our student life and leadership program in 2022 when I joined Germanna. And just for me, I think it's been really impactful because it connects all of us, especially with this very long general election that we just had. Hopefully all or most students are going to be eligible voters. We think about habit forming and how we want students to see this as something they do here in Virginia. We have an election every year, so we really want that to be their commitment. And so bringing along faculty, staff, we had this amazing outpour from the community with local organizations like the NAACP and Women League of Voters, and then some new young hip ones called Next Gen came by, but also the amount of national organizations that are available to us. I mean, it's all free swag, free perks, free messaging. And so we've been working with All In Campus Democracy Challenge, Students Vote, the Campus Vote project through the Fair Election Center. And just over the last 3 years, we've developed such a mobile coalition of students and faculty and staff that we were recently recognized based on the way they do NSOLV data. For 2022, we found out this month that we were the highest community college in the state of Virginia with the highest voter registration and voter turnout. So that was a big point of pride. And then yesterday morning, we were told we are being recognized as the most engaged campus for student voting in 2024 alongside some other national institutions. So to stand out that way really feels special. And I do think there's been a certain energy around it. And I'll plug another one, just student clubs and orgs. We see that as the base of our pyramid. We had a little bit of a downturn coming out of COVID, a lot of loss in those clubs just with folks graduating and turnover. And so we're just trying to build it back up by doing some new hopefully innovative things like dedicated funding to kind of put our money where our mouth is for those clubs, doing some new advisor recruitment and support and development. And then we're trying to pitch this club in a box idea where we feel like if we bring a club that's already kind of pre-made, ready to go, they'll be more inclined to get it off the ground. So that's where we see the most entry points and access for students, and we want to see them there.
I think wonderful examples, especially around the importance of voting and just having students learn that early on when they become a voter, and then hopefully that just continues as a normal thing you do every year. Wendy, again, one program that comes to mind for you among the many that you have going on at Flathead Valley. And you're muted.
There we go. Thank you. Being a smaller school and a small department, I'm mostly a department of one and have one other employee that I work with in campus rec and wellness. We have lots of different things that we do here on campus and different initiatives, but I think that the one I would like to highlight the most that's been successful for us in engaging our students has been bringing on board and building out our campus groups, which we've coined FVCC Connect. And just being a small campus, we do have a dorm here on campus, 124 beds for some students. So we have a little bit of on and off campus students, but I think it's been just starting with new student orientation, like what AJ mentioned, and really pushing students get connected online and get connected on that platform with the student orgs, resources, different things like that. So it's been exciting to see the students grab onto it, making certain posts to get them engaged with the community feed feature that it has. It's like an internal Instagram. We can promote different activities, different resources, especially like our food pantry, just to get them engaged. And so we've also incentivized it. We are really taking advantage of the gamification feature that's on there. And we're, for every so many points they get, they're getting a $500 gift card of their choice at the end of the year, have that opportunity. And so it's really fun to see students joining in on the posts and stuff. So that's kind of been ours, is having, for the first time ever, an online platform for students to connect and engage in. And so, yeah, that's been a big focus for us this semester.
I love it. Great to hear, and great to hear how students are adopting it. And certainly a $500 gift card potential doesn't hurt. But again, you're training them, right? Just like with the voter registration and voting, you're training them of the actions we want them to take, and we know will be beneficial to them for their future success. Let's take the other side of the coin for a moment here, and let's talk about some of the challenges that you all see as it relates to building that community and fostering students' sense of belonging at your institution. You've already alluded to some of it, but let's dive in just a little bit deeper. And Wendy, why don't I just stick with you first to give the other side of the coin perhaps a little bit?
Yeah, so for us, it is, just having that diverse population, having, the traditional students right out of school. A third of our population here right now is actually Running Start or dual enrollment students. So it's a big part of our population, which they're never even on campus. And then we have traditional students, but then we have the non-traditional students as well. So I think a big challenge for us is, not only do you have that population, but you have some that are only online, you have some that are face-to-face, and then you have a combination, right? So you're constantly trying to foster that sense of belonging and just, making sure they all have access to all the same resources. So that's a big challenge for us, for here on our campus. And yeah, so we have a focus, we're going to talk probably a little bit later, but we have a really strong focus on access, belonging, and success and how we can better do that. So that's been a big challenge for us, is getting our students engaged in what we do here on our campus.
Makes sense, absolutely. AJ, what about at Bergen? What are some of the challenges you see there?
Just a great question. A lot of our students have competing priorities. They might need to work. They might have siblings that they have to take care of. They might have children. And so, when they have those types of things are, competing priorities. So any way we can find to support them, to help them get engaged. We know engaged students do better. We try to support that and push the importance of being engaged, and time management skills. The other thing is, we have online students. About 2,000 of our students are fully online, and during the pandemic, everybody was online. How are we gauging these online students and this online population? It's not the same way that we've always traditionally done, engagement. It's not in person. And so, look, that's a challenge. What kind of technology exists to support engaging our online students in ways that is meaningful to them? So, those are some of the challenges, that we're facing at Bergen.
Makes sense. And some similarity to, I think, what Wendy shared, especially around the online student population. Frank, what are your thoughts from Germanna? Similar, different?
Yeah, pretty similar. I was going to say we see a lot as an open access institution. We accept all students, so they do come to us with employment, sometimes 1 or 2 jobs. Here in Virginia, our governor says we have 400,000 jobs that need to be filled, and so we have an intense focus in our CTE programs, our work-based learning programs, to really fill those roles with apprenticeships, paid internships, and actually, student employment. So we're kind of fighting ourselves with getting the students into employment right away, but also being hopefully a full, academic and engaged student. But one area that we're in is we have rural counties. And so we have some areas that don't have great internet or Wi-Fi. We have areas that are really far to get to. So if you wanted to make it to our farthest campus, you could drive almost an hour and a half. And so those are some real things in building community. But I also was going to share that we have a new focus on student parents. We're in a federal grant program called C-Campus. Childcare Access Means Parents in School. I highly recommend it, where we're providing direct stipends to students so they can be able to pay for their childcare. We're paying the providers directly, excuse me. And then a separate program, a local program, where we're paying students a stipend to ease that financial burden so that they're able to spend more time with us. And so that's been something for me as a non-parent that just really eye-opening. It's been really encouraging to know how dedicated these students are and how much time and effort they put into being great moms and dads, and then also being a student. And then I'll add, for what it's worth, challenges can also be just around state funding. We're also going through the process of what does our funding formula look like, and how are we getting money to support our new programs and our growing population. So as a college, we're pretty lean, and we try to work through that. So I'll plug campus groups. As a Ready Ed user, I used Ready Ed at my last institution in California. So glad to have Ready Education here. Campus groups, at least with all this diversity of people and population, it lets us have the digital college square where all of our students are coming together in one place, where we're messaging, we're able to communicate and connect students. I still love DMs and friending. I think it's so great that students want to be friends with the dean. I don't know why, but they reach out, and I think that's what really makes it so powerful, is that despite being in a rural county or urban city, our students really feel like they're connected all the time.
That's great, Frank. Great to hear. And again, important points there that you mentioned, whether it's funding related or even just thinking about all of the various populations that you each talked about and how you serve them and encourage them to engage or connect with others, especially as there are other options available to many of them, right? How do we keep this up on the list of priorities and make sure that they can be successful? Let's talk a little bit about, and some of this already came out, but I'm curious if you have other maybe ideas, recommendations on ways to foster community at an institution, maybe something successful that you've seen happen at yours. And Frank, let me go back to you first.
Sure. Thank you, Mirko. For this, I would add that I think we've really found success in making sure that our faculty friends see themselves as a part of this process. I don't know if there's a divide, but I think we're always bridging this idea that, like enrollment being everyone's responsibility at Germanna, so is student engagement and fostering that interest in students. And so we bring our faculty to the table. We try to be in front of them whenever they'll let us at faculty meetings and department meetings to just talk about the ways in which they can tie their academic programs and curriculum to the work we're doing. So whether that's sponsoring a field trip or bringing in a speaker or just doing something in partnership, we really want to see faculty as really blended and woven into that. The other thing is we recognize our students. We have to celebrate them. I think the world being ever connected or interconnected is really great, but it also has added clearly a lot more stress and anxiety to our students. If you've read the book Anxious Generation, there's just a lot of data suggesting that in all this interconnectivity, it also can bring on a lot more mental health concerns. So we take time to recognize them, to appreciate them. And so in the spring, like many of you, we host a big gala. We recognize students from clubs and orgs for their participation, because that is something we want to recognize, as well as student leaders who go above and beyond in student programming or initiatives. And then right now, we're actually starting our first time doing just student appreciation days. In December, we're just going to be at all of our campuses and sites, thanking students for choosing us, thanking them for picking Germanna to be their academic, institution of choice, for starting here and going anywhere. And so we find that to just be an opportunity to, again, show our appreciation, let students know we're here for them. And we think it pays dividends back because they see that genuine care that we have for them.
That's great, Frank. Wendy, anything from your experience at Flathead Valley around ideas for ways to foster communities? And you're muted.
Gotta remember to hit that button. Yeah, this year we focused a lot on our student government. Actually, that's kind of where we started with our student orgs and how do they function, how do they work, and we've kind of restructured that a little bit and had a really strong focus on, where are our students at, like where are they represented. So we've in sets of 2, we've added them into, they have spots on faculty senate and on the budget committee and all these different committees, academic leadership, and trying to get them engaged in what's going on, get them up, give them a really good orientation on how the college works, and kind of have them lead the way as far as getting students engaged and having more of a presence here on campus, and just showing that the students' voice is represented as well. And I think, that has helped us a lot as far as having that presence of students being engaged. We too have several different events throughout the year that we recognize students and ways that we can promote them and get them connected to faculty. But I think there needs to be a consistent, and visible way to see that our students are engaged. And I don't know if I've looked at, like, post-COVID, like this group of students that came in this year, they're so interested in the college and how it works. And in, of course, this year with the election going on, they're interested in legislative processes and all those kinds of things. So I try to take those leaders that stand out and get them engaged on campus in a variety of different ways, and also some off campus as well. So yeah.
I think that's a wonderful example. I love the fact that you've been able to get students on the various committees to open their eyes a little bit to what happens on campus, but more importantly, like you said, to give them the voice, because if they have that voice, they can talk more authentically about what's happening at the institution, right? And it shows the institution cares about the student perspective, and it's important to the institution. And I think that's a very poignant way of showcasing that, of highlighting that.
Yeah, and I agree. Faculty weren't quite so sure they wanted students on their faculty senate, but hey, they should know what's going on. So, and I think in a way it keeps them accountable as well.
Absolutely. And how has that gone so far? Have faculty now embraced having students there? Is there still some hesitation?
No, I think they're embracing the students. I think they're enjoying having that student there. Some students are a little bit quieter and some are more outspoken, but I think it's a good thing. I mean, you have to learn to work with all different types of people, right? So yeah, it's good.
That's a great example. AJ, anything that comes to mind for you?
Yes. Find your champions, find your engagement champions at Bergen. Yes, it was our student life department. They were the engagement champions here, and I worked with them, and a lot of the ideas came from the ground up. There's something that's been going on at Bergen since before I got here, something called Pizza with the President. They took that and kind of ran, since we brought on the Ready app, we were able to push that notification to the entire campus community, and we had to order more pizzas. Like the room was like over full. We were talking about we need a bigger boat, like from Jaws. Um, it was really awesome. So one way that's worked for me has been, finding my champions and working with those people and listening to them. Another way, is, look at the data. I'm fortunate enough to sit in a VP role, so I have a large deal of not control, but maybe authority and influence over a large swath of the college. So I can look at things that maybe need to be abandoned. Strategic abandonment's not always a bad thing. And I can reallocate resources to things that are working to make them more successful. And so finding your champions, generating ideas, and then finding ways to get creative with your resources, because we all know, money's not growing on trees and flying into our institutions from every which way. We have to find ways to support what's working. So that's some of the advice that I would give people. And don't stop. Keep trying new things until you find something that absolutely works, and then keep doing that, and then find the next thing, but keep doing the good thing.
Love it. Thank you, AJ. And yeah, I think we'll talk about tracking and data a little bit more in a couple of minutes, but I think that's a really important element, and not being afraid to make adjustments and recognize that just because something worked 4 years in a row, if it didn't work the fifth year, maybe that interest is no longer there. And just looking for new and different things. Absolutely. AJ, you already alluded a little bit to digital solutions and how they've helped you get the word out about things, and getting more and more people at the Pizza with the President event, just as an example. But how have digital solutions helped impact student engagement and retention? And maybe in particular, how important is a mobile strategy for that?
I would say a mobile strategy is probably the most important. All the data that I see, and every time I just observe and look around the hallway, students are carrying their cell phones around in their hands like this. And so reaching students where they're at, is definitely one of the most important things that we can do. So digital solutions have had a huge impact on retention and involvement. The concern sometimes can be that there's so many of them, right? And they have to go to this place for this and go to that place for that. And we've got our LMS, but then we've also got our self-service portal, but then they got to go here to use the chatbot if they have a question for AI chatbot technology. So digital solutions can have a huge impact, but sometimes I feel like they're scattered. What we were able to do when we built out our Ready app was kind of put all of our digital solutions in one spot, in one mobile device. So our chat bots in there, our Canvas shells for each student are in there. And so digital solutions, we feel like we know, because we can see the data, and we'll talk more about data later, are having huge impact on our students' engagement and their attention. That's how they operate. And if we're not meeting them where they're at, I think we're doing them a disservice if we're continuing to reproduce paper sheets and sign-in sheets and things like that. How's that preparing them? How's that helping them in a way that resonates with them? So that's some of my thoughts.
Thanks for sharing those. Frank, let me go right to you. Additional thoughts, ideas around the importance of digital and/or mobile?
Yeah, first I want to compliment AJ. I like his strategic reduction statement. I wanted to share that if you're looking for a good book, something that really helped me, and we've been using this as a mantra for the team, there's a book called Slow Productivity by Cal Newport. And his 3 principles are to do fewer things, work at a natural pace, and obsess over quality. And we've really tried to take that to heart of we can serve students better if we do that. So I think the connection here is we're in the same boat. We believe we should meet students where they're at. They're online. They're in their smartphones, which are basically, supercomputers in their pockets. And so we want to be there, but we also want to make sure that we're not overwhelming them. And so there was a digital transformation task force that Germanna had over the last few years. We listed it all out. AJ and I had a good laugh about there were programs that some of our team members saw that said, I don't know who owns that. I don't know what that is. Did we ever take it off the shelf and use it? And so I think we're trying to have more of like a core four where we have some really major technologies that work really well together. So our main ones are, of course, campus groups for our student life and leadership, our engagement. We use EAB Navigate 360 for our appointments, our campaigns, our enrollment, our early alerts. And so that's all interconnected. And then we work with a company called Simplicity to do Accommodate, which is our student accommodations for students with disabilities and other barriers, and a career hub that lets us track all of our employment opportunities. And really, we just want to kind of keep it small and tight and see how we can use those so they're interconnected. Germanna is also part of a system of 23 community colleges, the Virginia Community College System. And so we're also thinking about what they call a hub and spoke model of just making sure that we have centralized system networks that then allow each college to have their own branded version. So we're really excited to kind of keep going in that direction and hopefully continue to meet students where they're at, which who knows, maybe next is AR goggles, but we'll be ready.
Sounds good. Hopefully that's not the next place, just from a personal perspective, but we'll see where things take us. Wendy, your perspective on this around the importance of digital and mobile.
Yeah, well, to ditto what, Frank and AJ said too, you got to meet students where they're at, and they all have their phones in their hands all the time, right? So that's where you need to, really capitalize on, communicating with them and getting a hold of them there. And, we kind of joke around, I don't know if I should even say this, but, we are in Northwest Montana, so we always joke that, it takes us about 10 years longer than everybody else to get things implemented. So I feel like we're a little bit behind. We're just kind of new at this, using campus groups and digital platforms. We finally, this year, for the first time ever, have that mobile app and can see what a difference it's making. So I think it's really critical to have that for our students, especially at a small school. And then also on the flip side, it's really beneficial to me as a department of one, having the opportunity to, take a block on my schedule and make a post, or how can I engage students better today on this app, on this digital platform. So that's been huge for me to be able to do that and to have that technology available. Yeah, and just connect our students. I feel like it's huge. And we, for the first time here this last year, we created a data governance committee. And so they're reviewing constantly, like how many surveys are going out, what type of platforms do we have, where are the students going? So like, again, that's been a huge focus for us, is that having that data and making sure we're not overdoing it in a certain area. And I also wrote it down, AJ, strategic abandonment. I like that idea. So thank you.
Wonderful. I think all really good points, Wendy. And to your point, just having some of that infrastructure in place, like data governance and having people talking about, I think, Frank, you alluded to it, what platforms exist on campus and which ones are actually being used versus which ones sit over here on a shelf or two people are using, but then asking their students to use in class. If it's a faculty member rather than the one that most faculty members use, that creates, it's not pieces of paper that students have to fill out, but it's a disjointed user experience and they have to learn another platform. So those are some of the conversations where there's also opportunity to just improve the student experience. Let's shift to what we've already alluded to multiple times, which is talking about data that your teams are tracking, that you're looking at on a regular basis, or even just thinking about tracking and reviewing, because I think everybody's alluded to data-informed decision-making in some way, shape, or form so far today. Wendy, what about your perspective, knowing that you just sort of started with the Campus Groups platform, but what are the types of data that you're either looking at or considering looking at?
Well, I get very excited talking about this and with the other departments here on campus when they have an issue with data or something, and I can kind of spend some time thinking about it, processing it, creating forms, or helping them track data. So the different ways that we're tracking data right now, of course, are, what students, what demographics are attending certain events. Are they attending the key events like new student orientation or week of welcome activities? Or are they attending club meetings? So those bigger events and meetings, but we also have the library on board, and they are hosting student success workshops every single day of the week. And so we can see who's attending which workshops and what demographic that is, as well as we're also using it for the food pantry. So students don't have to fill out, kind of reducing that barrier of access. So they don't have to fill out a form every time, that we can just, just like enter a name or scan an ID card or something like that. Make it easy. We do the same thing in the fitness center, so we can see what students are taking care of, like their wellness. Are they working out in the gym? Are they attending intramurals? And then also, one thing that we really track, and that's kind of more dear to me, is community service. I have a passion for connecting our students in avenues and ways out in our community to get involved in the community, and we can track the community partners that they're working with. We've figured out a way to present that, so the students with the click of one button can see all the volunteer opportunities that are out there for them, or mentoring opportunities. And then we can also track their hours, so we can see what our students are doing for community service. So there's a lot of different things that we're tracking for student engagement, and having a technology or a digital platform to do that on has been a huge step forward for us.
That's great. And I think all of those elements are so important to try to track, so that you can start to see connections between them. So, or which students aren't doing any of the things that you're trying to do. And then what does that mean for the health of that student and the likelihood that that student is going to persist? Great points. AJ, you mentioned data probably about 10 times already, but let me go to you in terms of the scope and scale of what you're looking at regarding engagement and just student data overall.
There's so much. There's so much to look at. We're always trying to find what's the formula for a student to be successful. Is it 2 clubs? Is it being on campus 3 times a week? Is it, eating meatballs at the meatball truck? My president would appreciate that reference. But we're always looking for this formula of what is it that successful, engaged students do. So we track as much as we can, everything, and we try to find the trends. And then we try to incentivize students to meet those. And by incentivize, we've got some grants recently, and we've seen some best practices out there on the What Works Clearinghouse, where they actually monetarily incentivize in the first year success course, at orientation, with a $10 gift card, students doing certain activities and getting engaged. Going to tutoring twice a semester gets you this, So we're looking and tracking all the things Wendy was just talking about, and seeing what's the profile of a really successful student. And what we're finding is that the more engaged that the students are, in general, you can be over engaged, but the more engaged students are, the more successful that they are, for so many reasons. And that aligns with student development and student retention and involvement theory. So, we really, and this also helps us with our strategic abandonment, because if every student that went to X event, rated it not so well, and it didn't have too much of an impact on retention, and we say, maybe we change that event up. Maybe we put our resources somewhere else. So it's really allowed us to have a whole new world. And then we can also year to year set benchmarks, right? How many students were in that club? Is that club growing? Is that club getting smaller? Is that event having more attendance? So what are the ratings like? Should we allocate more resources to that or less? What areas are growing? Where should we be placing our resources? So it's very important to make these decisions based on data and not just anecdote and whoever's the loudest voice in the room. So it provides a totally different perspective, and we're tracking as much as we can. And then when we have conversations about resource allocation and strategies, we always bring those numbers. At the end of the year, I put it all together in a big departmental assessment presentation. It's kind of part of our assessment program here in student affairs, and then we compare year over year. So data is key to what we do. If we don't talk from data, we're just talking in anecdote. So so that's kind of how we use our data, and yeah, and we're measuring as much as we possibly can.
That's great. A follow-up question, AJ. So you put together the report. Is that shared at the cabinet level? Is that shared with faculty members, or more an internal tool that the student affairs department or division uses?
So all of that. So I have them available. I share them all with the president. I let him review them. The ones that I feel like we need to report out on, we will report out on. And throughout the year at the divisional meetings, I will typically have each area talk a little bit about what they do and have the opportunity to pull their slides and their data and their assessment out. I don't think people realize sometimes how much energy and effort goes into these things. Student Life, before we started doing this, said, I think people think we're just a bank and we're just out there to have fun. And I said, oh, wow, you're so much more than that. You have to show them. You have to show them that we're tracking data, that there's value in what you do, beyond just fun, that you're making a difference on the retention and the enrollment numbers, and that you're teaching these students something too. We're all in education, it's not just in the classroom. So that was, yeah, good question, Mirko.
Yeah, such critical commentary, and it is so important, right, to leverage any data that you're tracking to showcase to the rest of campus. Because again, there are perceptions out there. They are not often correct perceptions. I used to work in alumni relations. I got that comment too. Oh, you just plan parties. It's like, no, we do a lot more than plan parties. And that's not the goal, but so very similar in some ways. And that's why data is important, to be able to showcase how each of you and your teams contribute. Frank, what data are you looking at Germanna, and anything else to add to this great conversation on data?
Yeah, I would say I could add that one, if you have the opportunity with your institutional effectiveness or planning team, set up automated reports. Here at Germanna, every morning I get an email at 7:30 that has my enrollment, our dual enrollment. I have a special report for my grants for student parents. We have data dashboards that are available 24/7. So whether you use Microsoft or Tableau, just what Wendy said about data literacy is having access, being able to have conversations and dialogue about interpreting data. And then, as AJ said, just reporting out. So right now in the Commonwealth, we're looking at credit hours. That's our shtick right now, is that we are growing in headcount, and we are 50% growth in 4 years for dual enrollment and 20% year over year. So we have the students, but a lot more are choosing to be part-time. So we're using data to tell us what's going on. And so we've shifted our approach to academic advising and caseloading and our messaging. And I think that's the power of data-informed decision-making, is the data is telling us something. Now we have to intervene before we have a bunch of students who just want to take 1 or 2 classes. The other thing I'll say is, with campus groups, it's exactly that. Just even attendance tracking, service hours, it's telling a story that when we go to our local college board or a cabinet, really paints a picture of where our students are throughout the day and across our region. And year after year, the students, they surprise me. A student dance is still the #1 most attended thing that ever happens. And I will never be justified in thinking that dances are old school. They are in, and the data proves it.
Now I can't find the unmute button. Who knew? I wouldn't have guessed that a student dance continues successfully, but there we go. To your point, the data demonstrates it. Let's cover one more topic, and then we'll go to some questions from the audience as well. We've all talked about online students, and exclusively online students. And then in-person students. So how do you create a balance between what you do digitally versus in person to continue to foster that sense of community and belonging? Frank, let's start with you.
So at Germanna, we try to remind ourselves that with all this digital media, there is a demand, and we want to empathize with the face-to-face contact too. We really want to emphasize that being in person, being connected as a community, fostering that kind of community spirit is important. And so we live by the high tech, high touch. And so for us, it's, silly sometimes, but we ask ourselves, what is maybe for this special recognition event, would a mailed really nice paperweight invitation really go the distance to make a student feel like it's unique to them and that it's for them to have and keep. For student orientation, with sending a postcard with a QR code and all the dates of our upcoming programs, maybe really kind of set, like, put this on your fridge, like put it on your bulletin board, and just being present. And so we mentioned dual enrollment students. Those are the students who are out at the high schools, and we also have independent dual enrollment students. So we go to them and we try to make sure we're allocating time. Time is finite, to get our teams to be there, be present during their lunch hours, do after school specials, so that there really is a connection with Germanna. So as great as all of our digital media is, we want them to still remember the people that really make the institution the special place it is.
That's great. And that helps build community as well, because you're connecting them to individuals at the institution, right? So you have that, they sense how much you care for them, which is tougher to do online only if you're not in front of them in some way, shape, or form. Wendy, your perspective on digital versus in person, and how do you find that right balance? You're muted. It gets you every time.
It does. Sorry about that. I think we tend to think of programming as in-person events, like dances or bingo nights or things like that, and getting students engaged that way. And, again, kind of looking at that demographic, over the last 10 years or so, our average age student has gone down towards more of a traditional age student than the non-traditional. So we have to look at that data, but we try to focus on looking at how we can take these events and these activities and these opportunities for students that maybe are online, that are, parents working during the day and trying to do homework and manage kids in the evening, and how can we provide opportunities for them. So we try to always look at the in-person and then say on the flip side, okay, how could we get our online students engaged? And so, we've made a focus on, like, how can we take bingo and make it a gift card bingo? So those that are online, they don't have to worry about picking out groceries or prizes, but we can mail them a gift card, right? So via Zoom, everybody's more familiar with it the last 4 years probably than they were before, but we can have those links on Zoom for students to join. We set up Bob Ross paint nights, were one of our most favorite activities on campus. We set up little kits for them, and we provide them. They swing by campus whenever they can. They pick up their kit, and then again we do Bob Ross via Zoom. So we try to engage those students that are online, and so we try to find that balance and try to incorporate it whenever we can. If we can find an event that's on a Saturday where maybe some of those non-traditional students or online students can attend, we try to incorporate some of those events at times that those students. So we try to find that correlation, but like, most, I feel like most programming, whether it's a department or a student org, they always think about in person, which is really important, but to stop and look at that digital presence as well. And then just, using our technology to make sure that we're posting a wide variety of those opportunities as well.
Great. AJ, how are you differentiating or combining in-person and digital here?
Great question. I'll try to be quick so we have some time for questions. Yeah, I think we have to differentiate between services and engagement opportunities. And during the pandemic, we moved all of our services online, and I think we've done a good job. So, we provide services in person or online. We know some of our students are online, so if it's a service, we need to be able to serve them online. Now engagement opportunities, we have to be strategic about. And so where we can stream things, where we can include a virtual option, we try to do that. Where we're going to get the most bang for our buck. If it's an event that's, a smaller event, it might take more time and resources to set it up than it's worth if only one student tunes in. But if it's a larger event, like a town hall or a college forum, or something that's a middle states a visit, we bring in technology and we support that through our digital platforms, and always having a space for students both in person and online where they can talk to each other. I think that's important, that online students can also engage with face-to-face students. So I'm trying to set up those kinds of pathways. So I mean, there's a lot of ways to do that, but being smart and strategic about it and using the data.
Wonderful. And again, if you have a question for the panel, feel free to put it in the Q&A feature. I've seen a couple come in. The first one is more about different personalities among your student body. Some may be more introverted or maybe brand new to campus and have come maybe even from a homeschooling environment and then be on campus. How are you helping students that may struggle a little bit more with in-person connections get acclimated and adjusted? Sure, AJ, we'll start with you.
I'll just jump in. You know, we've continuously improved our orientation. So the first time we brought it back after the pandemic, we did it in a large theater-like setting and did a very few orientations with a lot of people. And what we found was those connections were lacking. This past year, we did a lot of sessions with a lot less students and created more time for small interaction. And we found students during that experience were making connections with each other and becoming friends. And so that was something we strategically said that made a difference. Let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing it that way.
I think that's a great example. Frank, I saw you nodding when I was asking the question too. Can I assume that you have a thought here as well?
Yeah, well, amen to AJ. I think that fundatory is still student affairs practice. And so we make our students get into small groups with our peer leaders, our student leaders. I'm a restorative justice practitioner. I think some restorative practices like community building circles, they work. And I think making students experience that in a safe and encouraging place has really brought out. But I always go back to my saying of just create a lot of avenues for students to get involved. So at Germanna, our creative arts journal is like home to the introverts, but they're so creative and so expressive, and that's where they found themselves. And then when they come to interclub council, they're with all the cheerleader, outgoing folks who are just rah, rah, rah. And that's really what I think is special. So tapping into faculty, we do a lot of student nominations. So faculty are bringing people to us and saying, this student's really special, reach out to them. And I was shocked when we first started doing text messaging campaigns. We changed our tactic for student government to say, we've identified you as a prospective student leader, as a potential student leader, you should apply. And it was outrageous how many students were like, really? Me? I'll put in my application this weekend. As opposed to just saying, please apply. It was just that personal encouragement that we see you and we want you to do this. That's been really successful for us.
I think that's a great example, Frank, and it speaks to just what an impact messaging can have. And just thinking through what the recipient will sense, right? What feelings you're generating among recipients. Wendy, any thoughts on this question around for students who are just maybe struggling a little bit more to adjust?
I think it's always hard to reach out to those students that are the more quiet ones, that type of thing. And we've done something similar to what Frank had mentioned. I think if you can engage that student's faculty member to nominate them to be on student government or encourage them to be part of the honors program or whatever, it does wonders for that student. And I think that, for me personally, it's been a goal to get out more. We're a smaller school and I can engage with students that are here in the student lounge or the fitness center or in the library and just kind of having some of those conversations, and I believe that those quieter students, they'll connect in their smaller groups, but eventually they talk, right? And I think it kind of starts that movement of like, hey, they really care about us. They really want to help us. And so I think that, you have to start small sometimes and making those connections.
Wonderful. Well, that brings us to the end of our session. I can't believe an hour is over already. Thank you so much, Frank and AJ and Wendy, for joining us. Great insights and perspective that you shared today. And I know I got a lot out of it. I'm sure those who participated did as well. And to those of you who joined, thank you for being here. And again, we will send out a copy of the recording as well. With that, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.